In the shadowed annals of human history, where myth intertwines with the whispers of ancient truths, there lies a tale so profound it has echoed through millennia, shaping the very fabric of our understanding of good and evil. Imagine a time before recorded history, when the heavens themselves trembled with a forbidden desire or rebellion that would forever alter the course of humanity. This is the story of the Watchers, celestial beings tasked with guardianship, who dared to defy the divine order. As we embark on this journey together, if these enigmas of the ancient world captivate you as they do me, consider giving this video a thumbs up, subscribing to uncover more hidden chapters of our past, sharing it with those who seek the unknown, and dropping a comment below letting me know where in the world you're tuning in from. Now, let us step into the mists of time, where the line between observer and participant blurred into catastrophe. The world was young, a cradle of creation still humming with the echoes of divine fiat. In those primordial days, as described in the ancient scrolls of Enoch, text revered yet shrouded in controversy. Dating back to the intertestamental period around the 3rd century BC, the heavens were not distant and indifferent. They were alive with purpose, populated by beings of immense power and intellect. These were the Watchers, known in Hebrew as the Iron, or in Greek translations as the Grigori. They were angels, not the winged cherubs of Renaissance art, but formidable entities, emissaries of the Most High, assigned to oversee the unfolding drama of mortal existence. Picture them, if you will, vast, luminous figures, their forms ethereal yet imposing, radiating an otherworldly light that could pierce the veil between realms. Their role was clear, etched into the cosmic law as immutable as the stars themselves. They were to watch, to observe, to chronicle the progress of humanity without interference. From their lofty perches in the celestial spheres, they gazed upon the earth of verdant paradise, teeming with the first stirrings of civilization. Adam's descendants multiplied, forging tools from stone, taming fire, and whispering prayers to the unseen. The Watchers' duty was passive vigilance, ensuring that the divine plan proceeded unmolested by external forces. They were the silent sentinels, the unseen eyes in the sky, recording every triumph and folly of the human race. But observation is a double-edged sword. To watch is to learn, to empathize, to yearn. As eons pass, though time for immortals flows differently than for us, the Watchers began to see humanity not as mere subjects of study, but as beings of profound complexity. The ancient texts, including fragments from the Dead Sea Scrolls discovered in the caves of Qumran in the mid-20th century, paint a vivid picture of this growing fascination. Humanity's ingenuity captivated them, the way mortals harnessed the elements, built shelters against the storm, and formed bonds of love and kinship. In the Book of Enoch, chapter 6, it is written that the sons of heaven saw the daughters of men and found them fair. But this was no superficial glance. It was a deepening awe for the human spirit's resilience. Consider the context of that era. The earth was a tapestry of raw beauty and brutal survival. Floodplains gave way to deserts, mountains pierced the clouds, and rivers carved canyons through stone. Humanity, emerging from the shadows of Eden, grappled with existence in a world both bountiful and unforgiving. They hunted mammoths with spears fashioned from flint, painted visions of the divine on cave walls, and gathered around fires to share stories that would one day become legends. The Watchers, immortal and unchanging, witnessed the fleeting nature of human life, the joy of birth, the agony of loss, the ecstasy of discovery. What must it have been like for these eternal beings to observe such ephemerality? Envy, perhaps, a stirring curiosity that gnawed at their celestial composure. Scholars of ancient Near Eastern mythology, drawing from Sumerian and Babylonian influences that predated even the Hebrew Bible, suggest that similar Watcher-like figures appear in tales of the Apkallu age beings who descended to impart wisdom. But in the Enochian tradition, the Watchers' fascination took a darker turn. They were not content with mere observation. Whispers began among them, subtle at first, like the rustle of leaves before a storm. Why, they pondered. Should they remain aloof when humanity struggled in ignorance? The divine law forbade intervention, a decree as old as creation itself, designed to preserve free will and the natural order. To meddle was to rebel, to challenge the architect of the universe. Yet rebellion brews in the heart before it manifests in action. The leader among them, according to Enoch, was Semyazu, sometimes rendered as Shemyeza or Semyazah, prince of the heavenly host, wise and commanding. Under his influence, 200 watchers gathered in secret councils, their voices echoing in the ethereal halls beyond mortal sight. They debated the merits of their role, questioning the wisdom of eternal detachment. Humanity's beauty, particularly the allure of human women, became a focal point. But it was more than physical attraction. It was a profound envy of mortal passion, creativity, and the ability to procreate, to leave a legacy in flesh and blood. As the fascination deepened, so did the discontent. The Watchers saw humanity's potential stifled by ignorance. Diseases ravaged villages. Wars erupted over scarce resources, and the mysteries of the cosmos remained unsolved. They possessed knowledge forbidden to mortal, secrets of the stars, the forging of metals, the arts of enchantment, and the hidden forces of nature. Why withhold such gifts? The ancient texts describe this internal conflict with haunting detail. In Enoch 7:2-1-2, it's noted that they began to desire the daughters of men. But scholars interpret this as symbolic of a broader yearning to engage with the human experience. Their role as observers had become a prison, a gilded cage from which they longed to escape. The turning point came in the form of a pact, a solemn oath that bound them in irrevocable unity. On the summit of Mount Hermon, a majestic peak in the ancient Levant, its snow-capped heights piercing the sky like a sentinel between worlds, the Watchers convened. This location, steeped in mythological significance, was no arbitrary choice. In Canaanite lore, it was the abode of gods. In Hebrew tradition, a place of divine encounters. Here, under the canopy of stars they once charted, Semyeza proposed the unthinkable: descent to earth, to take human wives, to teach forbidden knowledge, to live among mortals as gods. But doubt lingered. What if some faltered? What if the wrath of heaven fell unevenly? To forge unbreakable loyalty, they swore an oath, cursing themselves should any betray the cause. The Book of Enoch recounts this moment with chilling precision. And they all answered him and said, "Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing." The air crackled with tension, the wind howling as if in protest. They inscribed their vow upon the mountain stone, a covenant sealed in celestial fire. 200 strong, they included luminaries like Azazel, who would teach the arts of war and adornment, Barakal, master of astrology, and Kakabal, revealer of constellations. Their names, preserved in apocryphal writings, evoke a sense of lost grandeur and impending doom. Why descend? The reasons were multifaceted, a confluence of fascination, compassion, and hubris. Fascination with humanity's vitality, the spark of life that immortals lacked. Compassion for mortal suffering, a desire to elevate them from barbarism. And hubris, the belief that they, as superior beings, could improve upon the divine plan without consequence. In Mesopotamian parallels, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh, divine beings interact with humans, but always at a cost. The Watchers ignored these warnings, blinded by their own righteousness. The moment of crossing arrived at dawn, as the first rays of sun gilded Mount Hermon's slopes. Semyeza, his form shimmering like molten gold, stepped forward. The boundary between heaven and earth, veil thin yet impenetrable to the obedient, loomed before them. With a collective breath, they pierced it. Their descent, a cascade of light streaking across the sky like falling stars. Ancient astronomers might have recorded this as a meteor shower, but it was no natural phenomenon. They landed amidst the valleys below, their ethereal forms condensing into tangible bodies, wings folding into human guise. The earth trembled subtly, as if sensing the intrusion. At first, their presence was subtle, a whisper in the wind. They approached human settlements, appearing as wise strangers from distant lands. The daughters of men, strong and resilient in a world of toil, were drawn to their otherworldly charisma. Marriages followed, unions that blurred the lines between divine and mortal. But this was only the beginning. As they settled, the Watchers began to impart their secrets. Azazel taught the forging of swords and shields, transforming hunting tools into weapons of war. Armoros revealed enchantments and sorcery. Penemu instructed in writing, unlocking the power of recorded knowledge. Humanity flourished under this tutelage, cities rising where huts once stood, arts and sciences blooming like desert flowers after rain. Yet, beneath the progress lurked shadows. The knowledge was double-edged medicine healed, but poisons killed. Astronomy guided, but astrology manipulated fates. The offspring of these unions, the Nephilim giants of renown, warriors of immense strength, roamed the land, their appetites insatiable. Violence escalated, the earth crying out under the weight of corruption. As the sun set on this new era, the Watchers gazed upon their handiwork, a mix of pride and unease stirring within. Little did they know, the heavens had not forgotten. Whispers of divine displeasure rumbled like distant thunder, and the first signs of cosmic retribution began to manifest. The world teetered on the brink of transformation, the rebellion's consequences unfolding in ways none could foresee. But that is a tale for our next chapter, where the giants rise and the floodwaters gather. As the sun dipped below the jagged horizon, casting long shadows over the fertile valleys where the Watchers had made their earthly homes, a new dawn of knowledge broke upon humanity. What began as a trickle of secrets soon swelled into a torrent, forever reshaping the mortal world. The fallen angels, once bound by celestial restraint, now walked among men as teachers, mentors, and consorts. Their teachings, drawn from the hidden vaults of heaven, were gifts wrapped in parallel advancements that propelled civilization forward while sowing the seeds of its undoing. In the ancient words of Enoch, preserved through centuries of oral tradition and later inscribed in the Ethiopian canon, we find the catalog of these forbidden arts, a litany of revelations that blurred the boundary between enlightenment and catastrophe. Semyeza, the architect of the descent, oversaw the dissemination with a regal authority, his voice resonating like thunder rolling down from Mount Hermon. But it was Azazel, fierce and innovative, who first unveiled the mysteries of metallurgy. In the flickering light of forges kindled with unearthly fire, he taught humans to extract ores from the earth's veins: copper, tin, and iron, melding them into alloys stronger than bone. At first, their presence was subtle, a whisper in the wind. They approached human settlements, appearing as wise strangers from distant lands. The daughters of men, strong and resilient in a world of toil, were drawn to their otherworldly charisma. Marriages followed, unions that blurred the lines between divine and mortal. But this was only the beginning. As they settled, the Watchers began to impart their secrets. Azazel taught the forging of swords and shields, transforming hunting tools into weapons of war. Armoros revealed enchantments and sorcery. Penemu instructed in writing, unlocking the power of recorded knowledge. Humanity flourished under this tutelage, cities rising where huts once stood, arts and sciences blooming like desert flowers after rain. Yet, beneath the progress lurked shadows. The knowledge was double-edged medicine healed, but poisons killed. Astronomy guided, but astrology manipulated fates. The offspring of these unions, the Nephilim giants of renown, warriors of immense strength, roamed the land, their appetites insatiable. Violence escalated, the earth crying out under the weight of corruption. As the sun set on this new era, the Watchers gazed upon their handiwork, a mix of pride and unease stirring within. Little did they know, the heavens had not forgotten. Whispers of divine displeasure rumbled like distant thunder, and the first signs of cosmic retribution began to manifest. The world teetered on the brink of transformation, the rebellion's consequences unfolding in ways none could foresee. But that is a tale for our next chapter, where the giants rise and the floodwaters gather. As the sun dipped below the jagged horizon, casting long shadows over the fertile valleys where the Watchers had made their earthly homes, a new dawn of knowledge broke upon humanity. What began as a trickle of secrets soon swelled into a torrent, forever reshaping the mortal world. The fallen angels, once bound by celestial restraint, now walked among men as teachers, mentors, and consorts. Their teachings, drawn from the hidden vaults of heaven, were gifts wrapped in parallel advancements that propelled civilization forward while sowing the seeds of its undoing. In the ancient words of Enoch, preserved through centuries of oral tradition and later inscribed in the Ethiopian canon, we find the catalog of these forbidden arts, a litany of revelations that blurred the boundary between enlightenment and catastrophe. Semyeza, the architect of the descent, oversaw the dissemination with a regal authority, his voice resonating like thunder rolling down from Mount Hermon. But it was Azazel, fierce and innovative, who first unveiled the mysteries of metallurgy. In the flickering light of forges kindled with unearthly fire, he taught humans to extract ores from the earth's veins, copper, tin, and iron, melding them into alloys stronger than bone. At first, their presence was subtle, a whisper in the wind. They approached human settlements, appearing as wise strangers from distant lands. The daughters of men, strong and resilient in a world of toil, were drawn to their otherworldly charisma. Marriages followed, unions that blurred the lines between divine and mortal. But this was only the beginning. As they settled, the Watchers began to impart their secrets. Azazel taught the forging of swords and shields, transforming hunting tools into weapons of war. Revealed enchantments and sorcery. Penemu instructed in writing, unlocking the power of recorded knowledge. Humanity flourished under this tutelage, cities rising where huts once stood, arts and sciences blooming like desert flowers after rain. Yet, beneath the progress lurked shadows. The knowledge was double-edged, medicine healed, but poisons killed. Astronomy guided, but astrology manipulated fates. The offspring of these unions, the Nephilim, giants of renown, warriors of immense strength, roamed the land, their appetites insatiable. Violence escalated, the earth crying out under the weight of corruption. As the sun set on this new era, the Watchers gazed upon their handiwork, a mix of pride and unease stirring within. Little did they know, the heavens had not forgotten. Whispers of divine displeasure rumbled like distant thunder, and the first signs of cosmic retribution began to manifest. The world teetered on the brink of transformation, the rebellion's consequences unfolding in ways none could foresee. But that is a tale for our next chapter, where the giants rise and the floodwaters gather. As the sun dipped below the jagged horizon, casting long shadows over the fertile valleys where the Watchers had made their earthly homes, a new dawn of knowledge broke upon humanity. What began as a trickle of secrets soon swelled into a torrent, forever reshaping the mortal world. The fallen angels, once bound by celestial restraint, now walked among men as teachers, mentors, and consorts. Their teachings, drawn from the hidden vaults of heaven, were gifts wrapped in parallel advancements that propelled civilization forward while sowing the seeds of its undoing. In the ancient words of Enoch, preserved through centuries of oral tradition and later inscribed in the Ethiopian canon, we find the catalog of these forbidden arts, a litany of revelations that blurred the boundary between enlightenment and catastrophe. Semyeza, the architect of the descent, oversaw the dissemination with a regal authority, his voice resonating like thunder rolling down from Mount Hermon. But it was Azazel, fierce and innovative, who first unveiled the mysteries of metallurgy. In the flickering light of forges kindled with unearthly fire, he taught humans to extract ores from the earth's veins, copper, tin, and iron, melding them into alloys stronger than bone. Swords emerged from the flames, their edges keen enough to cleave stone. Shields hammered into impenetrable barriers. Knives and spears that could fell beasts from afar. Before this, humanity's tools were crude, fashioned from flint and wood, sufficient for hunting and harvest. Now, with Azazel's guidance, villages transformed into armories. Warriors, once armed with clubs and slings, wielded blades that sang through the air, turning skirmishes over waterholes into organized battles for territory. This knowledge spread like wildfire across the ancient Near East, echoing in archaeological finds from sites like Katal, Yuk, and Jericho, where evidence of early metalworking dates back to the Chalcolithic period. Around 6000 BCE, societies accelerated. Trade routes blossomed as merchants bartered gleaming artifacts for grain and spices. Cities rose from the dust-walled enclaves where artisans crafted jewelry and ornaments, adorning the elite with symbols of power. But progress came at a cost. The same forges that produced plows for tilling soil also birthed weapons of war. Tribes that once coexisted in uneasy peace now clashed with lethal efficiency. Blood stained the earth in greater measure, feuds escalating into massacres as the allure of conquest gripped the hearts of men. Azazel's teachings, meant to empower, instead ignited a cycle of violence, where strength was measured not by wisdom, but by the sharpness of one's blade. Not all revelations were forged in fire. Barakal, the stargazer among the fallen, turned humanity's gaze upward to the velvet expanse of night. He deciphered the constellations, mapping the paths of planets and the cycles of the moon. Astronomy, once a vague intuition for planting seasons, became a precise science. Farmers learned to predict floods and droughts by the alignment of stars, ensuring bountiful harvests that fed growing populations. In the spirit of ancient Babylonian astronomers, whose clay tablets from the 18th century BCE record similar observations, Barakal's knowledge laid the foundation for calendars and navigation. Seafarers ventured beyond sight of land, guided by Polaris and Orion, discovering new horizons and establishing trade with distant shores. Yet, woven into this celestial wisdom was astrology, a seductive art that twisted fate into superstition. Barakal taught how to divine omens from eclipses and comets, convincing mortals that their destinies were etched in the heavens. Kings consulted the stars before battles. Priests interpreted portents to manipulate the masses. What began as a tool for harmony with nature devolved into a means of control, fostering division. Societies splintered along lines of perceived cosmic favor, with some claiming divine right based on birth under auspicious signs. Fear of ill omens paralyzed progress as communities halted endeavors at the whisper of an unfavorable alignment. The balance tilted. Knowledge that could unite instead bred paranoia and conflict as rival factions warred over interpretations of the same sky. Deeper still, into the arcane delved Armaros and Penemu, masters of enchantment and inscription. Armaros revealed the secrets of sorcery incantations that bent the elements, charms to heal or harm, rituals to summon unseen forces. In the dim glow of ritual fires, he instructed shamans in the binding of spirits, the weaving of protective wards, and the unleashing of curses. This echoed in later Mesopotamian texts like the Enuma Elish, where magic intertwined with creation myths. Humanity's healers evolved, concocting potions from herbs and minerals to cure ailments that once claimed lives en masse. Plagues receded, lifespans extended, and communities thrived with newfound resilience against disease. But sorcery's shadow loomed large. The power to heal was the power to destroy. Charms turned to hexes, wards to weapons of psychic assault. Villages fell under the sway of ambitious sorcerers who wielded fear as a scepter. Conflicts that were once physical now invaded the spiritual realm, with accusations of witchcraft sparking purges and vendettas. The fabric of society frayed as trust eroded. Neighbors eyed one another with suspicion, fearing hidden maledictions. Penemu compounded this with the gift of writing, etching symbols onto clay and papyrus that captured thoughts eternally. Knowledge preserved, histories recorded, laws codified. Empires could now administer vast territories, with scribes documenting edicts that brought order to chaos. This mirrored the dawn of cuneiform in Sumer around 3200 BCE, accelerating cultural exchange and innovation. However, writing also immortalized grievances, codified inequalities, and spread forbidden lore far beyond the Watcher's control. Scrolls of incantations circulated in secret, empowering the unscrupulous. Propaganda-fueled wars, as rulers inscribed false narratives to justify conquests. The acceleration was dizzying. From oral traditions to written epics, humanity leaped forward, but at the price of amplified discord. Words became weapons sharper than any sword, inciting rebellions and deepening divides. Amid these profound teachings, even the mundane bore the mark of the divine. A Mazarak unveiled the arts of root cutting and herbalism, expanding medicine's reach. But it was the teachings on cosmetics and adornment that subtly undermined societal bonds. The Watchers instructed women and men. The enhancement of beauty dyes from crushed berries and minerals to paint faces, oils to sheen hair, gems set in metal to dazzle. This vanity, as described in Enoch 8:2122, transformed appearances, boosting confidence and fostering arts like jewelry making. Trade in luxuries boomed. Cultures intermingled through shared aesthetics, and social rituals evolved around beauty. Yet this too corrupted. Beauty became a commodity, a tool for manipulation. Jealousies flared, leading to thefts and assaults. Hierarchies rigidified, with the adorned elite oppressing the plain. Conflicts arose over resources, mines stripped bare for precious stones, lands ravaged for rare plants. The pursuit of external perfection masked internal decay as societies valued facade over substance, breeding resentment and strife. As these knowledges intertwined, humanity's civilizations surged ahead, millennia in mere generations. Villages swelled into metropolises, rivers dammed for irrigation, roads paved for commerce. In the fertile crescent of Mesopotamia, echoes of this era resonate in the ruins of Uruk, where ziggurats reach toward the heavens. Perhaps inspired by the Watchers' tales of celestial architecture, innovations cascaded. Wheeled carts revolutionized transport. Astronomical clocks timed daily life. Enchanted talismans warded homes. Life expectancy rose. Populations exploded. Arts flourished with epic poems inscribed on tablets, celebrating the gods who walked among them. But acceleration bred imbalance. The earth groaned under the weight of exploitation, forests felled for forges, rivers poisoned by mining runoff, wildlife decimated by advanced hunters. Social structures cracked. The elite, armed with superior knowledge, amassed power, enslaving the ignorant. Wars proliferated, not for survival, but for dominance. Armies clad in Azazel's armor clashed in fields once tilled for grain, leaving scorched earth in their wake. Sorcery amplified, atrocitus curses blighting crops, illusions deceiving foes into ambushes. Astrology justified genocides, with conquerors claiming stellar mandates. Violence permeated every stratum. Families torn asunder by hexes. Communities divided by written decrees favoring the powerful. The forbidden arts, once guarded in heaven for their potency, now ran rampant, unchecked by mortal wisdom. Corruption seeped into the soul of society. Bribery in courts, false prophecies in temples, cosmetic deceptions in alliances. The world, once a harmonious creation, fractured into realms of haves and have-nots, where knowledge was hoarded as a weapon. Whispers of unease stirred among the watchers themselves. Simyeza, surveying the burgeoning cities from his mountain perch, felt the first pangs of regret. The heavens, silent no longer, sent omened storms unnatural in their fury, eclipses lingering too long. Divine displeasure manifested in subtle ways. Crops withering despite irrigation, diseases resisting herbal cures. The balance shattered. Nature rebelled against the hubris of accelerated progress. Yet, the deepest shadow loomed in the unions between watchers and mortals. Their offspring, gestating in wombs unprepared for divine seed, began to stir. Whispers spread of children born unnaturally large, their cries echoing like thunder. These hybrids, the Nephilim giants whose appetites matched their stature, merged into a world already teetering on chaos. As the first of them took their faltering steps, the earth trembled anew, foretelling an era where the sins of the fathers would be visited upon the sons in colossal form. The corruption deepened, the violence escalated, and the heavens prepared their response. But the full horror of the giants' reign and the deluge that followed awaits in the shadows ahead. As the first cries of these unnatural progeny pierced the air, a new terror unfurled across the ancient landscape. The Nephilim, born of the forbidden unions between the Watchers and the daughters of men, emerged, not as fragile infants, but as harbingers of an era drenched in blood and shadow. In the cryptic verses of Genesis 6:4, etched into the Torah around the 6th century BCE, but drawing from far older oral traditions, they are described as the heroes of old, men of renown. Yet, this renown was forged in the fires of tyranny, their very existence a testament to the hubris of their celestial fathers. The Book of Enoch, that enigmatic apocryphon unearthed among the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947, delves deeper, portraying them as giants whose stature matched their insatiable hungers. These were no ordinary children. They were hybrids, vessels where divine essence clashed with mortal frailty, resulting in beings of colossal proportions and unquenchable appetites. Who were the Nephilim, truly? Ancient texts offer glimpses, but interpretations diverge like rivers from a single source. In the literal reading, preserved in Enochian lore and echoed in Mesopotamian epics, like the Atrahasis from the 18th century BCE, they were physical, titan-stowering figures, perhaps 15 to 30 feet tall, their frames corded with muscle that could uproot cedars and shatter boulders. Archaeological whispers from sites like the Golan Heights, where massive stone structures dubbed dolmens date to the Bronze Age, fuel speculation. Could these megalithic tombs have housed such giants? Skeletons unearthed in the Levant, though often debunked as hoaxes or misidentifications, stir debates among scholars. The Hebrew term Nephilim derives from Nephil, meaning to fall, linking them to the fallen Watchers, suggesting they were the fallen ones' offspring, literal demigods striding the earth. Yet, a symbolic lens, favored by modern theologians and historians, views them not as flesh and blood behemoths, but as metaphors for mighty warriors or corrupt rulers. In this view, drawn from comparative mythology, the Nephilim represent the dilution of human purity through intermarriage with powerful clans. Their giant status symbolizing overwhelming influence rather than height. Texts like the Epic of Gilgamesh portrays semi-divine kings, like Gilgamesh himself, 2/3 God, 1/3 man as larger-than-life figures whose exploits dominated the world. Whether literal or allegorical, the ancients agreed. The Nephilim were agents of change, their presence accelerating the spiral toward apocalypse. Neutral scholarship, from the works of biblical experts like Michael Heiser to anthropologists studying prehistoric folklore, presents both perspectives without favoritism, urging us to consider the cultural context where myth and history entwine. Their birth marked the inflection point. Imagine the scenes, in mud brick huts scattered across the antediluvian plains. Women labored under impossible burdens, their bodies strained by fetuses that grew at an unnatural pace. The Watchers, their ethereal features now etched with mortal worry, stood vigil as these children burst forth. Already the size of toddlers, their eyes gleaming with an intelligence both profound and predatory. Names like Og, Sihon, and Anakakode in later biblical accounts of Canaanite giants merge in fragmented lore, suggesting lineages that spread like weeds through fertile soil. As they matured, the Nephilim towered over their human kin, their strength allowing them to hunt megafauna with bare hands, construct fortresses from monoliths, and command armies with voices that boomed like avalanches. The world transformed under their shadow. What had been a patchwork of agrarian societies, quickened by the Watchers' knowledge, now warped into a hierarchy dominated by these hybrids. Cities, once hubs of innovation, became bastions of oppression. In the cradle of civilizations, stretching from the Tigris-Euphrates basin to the Nile-S Delta, archaeological evidence from the Uruk period around 4000 BCE hints at rapid urbanization with ziggurats and palaces that could have been built by labor forces augmented by giant overseers. The Nephilim, inheriting their father's forbidden arts, amplified the teachings. They forged weapons of unprecedented scale, swords as long as a man is tall, armor plated with alloys that deflected arrows like rain. Astronomy guided their conquests, sorcery shielded their strongholds, and writing chronicled their reigns in epics that glorified brutality. Progress, once a beacon, twisted into perversion. Irrigation canals expanded under Nephilim direction, fed vast farmlands, swelling populations to numbers the earth strained to support. Trade caravans, laden with spices, silks, and metals, crisscrossed continents, fostering a global exchange that predated known history. Arts flourished in macabre splendor. Sculptures of the giants themselves, hewn from granite, depicted them as god-kings, their forms idealized yet terrifying. Music evolved, with harps strung from sinews of extinct beasts, melodies that evoked both ecstasy and dread. Medicine advanced, allowing the Nephilim to extend their already prolonged lives, but at the expense of experimenting on human subjects, blurring ethics into oblivion. Yet, this acceleration bred destruction. The giants' appetites were voracious. Not just for food, legends speak of them devouring livestock herds in a single sitting, then turning to human flesh when resources dwindled but for power and domination. Violence, already simmering from the Watchers' warcraft, erupted into cataclysmic wars. Tribes clashed not for land, but for the favor of Nephilim lords, who pitted armies against each other in gladiatorial spectacles. Blood soaked the battlefields, rivers running red, as described in Enoch 7:2-3-5, where the giants devoured the labor of all the sons of men. Corruption spread like a plague. Bribery-infested courts where judges bowed to the giants' whims. Sorcery twisted justice, with curses dooming the innocent. Societies fractured along lines of blood. Purity, those with Nephilim ancestry claimed divine right, enslaving pure humans as chattel. The earth itself rebelled against this imbalance. Forests, stripped for timber to build the giants' palaces, gave way to deserts. Rivers, overdiverted, flooded valleys in wrathful torrents. Wildlife vanished, hunted to extinction by the insatiable hunters, disrupting ecosystems that had endured for millennia. Plagues, perhaps born from the unholy mingling of divine and mortal biology. ravaged populations, bodies bloating and decaying in ways no herb could cure. Omens multiplied, skies darkened by unnatural eclipses, comets streaking like accusatory fingers, earthquakes rumbling as if the ground itself mourned. In this lost world, before the flood antediluvian epoch, shrouded in myth, yet tantalizingly real through geological echoes like the Black Sea deluge. Hypothesis around 5600 BC, humanity teetered on the abyss. Cultures that once revered the stars now feared them, interpreting every anomaly as divine judgment. Temples, once places of communion, became fortresses where priests offered sacrifices to appease the giants. God softened the watchers themselves, deified in their fall. Social bonds dissolved. Families betrayed kin for scraps from Nephilim tables. Lovers abandoned each other amid accusations of sorcery. Chaos reigned in the streets of burgeoning metropolises, where riots over dwindling food turned into massacres, the giants wading through crowds like reapers through wheat. The spread of corruption was insidious, seeping into every crevice of existence. Children, raised in the shadow of these titans, emulated their violence, playground scuffles escalating into lethal duels with miniature weapons. Women, once partners in the Watcher's descent, now cowered under the tyranny of their hybrid sons, their beauty enhancements twisted into marks of ownership. Men, envious and emasculated, formed secret cults, delving deeper into forbidden arts to challenge the giants, only to unleash greater horrors. Demons summoned in desperation, pacts that bound souls to eternal torment. As the centuries blurred time, stretching in the presence of immortals, the world descended into a maelstrom of depravity. Enoch's text paints a harrowing picture. The earth was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. Genesis echoes this, noting that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Archaeological parallels from the Nachafian culture to the early Bronze Age suggest periods of intense conflict, with mass graves and fortified settlements bearing silent witness. The giants, once seen as benefactors, became tyrants, their reigns marked by excesses that drained the land dry. Famine stalked the plains as over-farmed soil turned to dust. Pestilence followed, vectors thriving in overcrowded slums. Whispers of resistance flickered like dying embers. Some humans, clinging to ancestral purity, fled to remote mountains, preserving oral tales that would survive the cataclysm. Others, seduced by power, allied with the Nephilim, becoming enforcers in a regime of terror. The Watchers, now bound to earth by their choices, watched in growing horror as their legacy unraveled. Semyeza, from his hermitage on Hermon's slopes, beheld the chaos, his packed a chain that choked the world. Azazel's forges, meant for progress, now belched smoke that blotted the sun, arming legions that raised villages for sport. The atmosphere thickened with doom, a palpable heaviness that pressed upon every soul. Skies brooded with perpetual storms, thunder echoing the giants' laughter. Nights stretched endless, pierced by howls of beasts and screams of the oppressed. The lost world, a paradise corrupted, mirrored later apocalyptic visions from Plato's Atlantis, submerged for its hubris to Sumerian flood myths where gods weary of human noise. Here, the noise was cacophony, clashing steel. Incantations chanted in frenzy, the earth groaning under colossal footsteps. In this vortex of collapse, a solitary figure emerged from the obscurity of genealogy. Enoch, seventh from Adam, a man of unblemished lineage amid the filth ascribe, a visionary, whose name means initiated or dedicated. Ancient texts, including the pseudepigrapha compiled in the centuries before Christ, portray him as a bridge between worlds, a mortal granted glimpses of the divine. As the corruption peaked, Enoch wandered the ravaged lands, his heart heavy with the world's sins. Little did he know, as he ascended a sacred hill under a blood moon, that he was about to witness revelations no human eyes were meant to behold, visions of judgment. secrets of the cosmos, and the inexorable approach of the Great Deluge. Under the crimson glow of that ominous blood moon, Enoch crested the hill, his sandals crunching against the parched earth that had long forgotten the taste of untainted rain. The air hung heavy with the scent of impending storm, a metallic temps that spoke of cosmic unrest. Enoch, a descendant of Seth, unmarred by the corrupting bloodlines that now plagued the world, was no ordinary man. Born in a time when the giant shadows stretched long and the cries of the oppressed echoed through valleys, he walked with a quiet righteousness that set him apart. The ancient texts Genesis 5:24, brief yet profound whisper that Enoch walked with God. Then he was no more, because God took him away. He was the man who never died, a mortal elevated beyond the veil of death, spared the decay that claimed all others. But why him? In a world drowning in corruption, Enoch's life became a beacon, his piety a rare flame amid the encroaching darkness. Scholars delving into the pseudepigraphal traditions, those writings attributed to biblical figures but composed in the intertestamental period between 300 BCE and 100 CE, portray Enoch as more than a mere patriarch. He was a messenger, a scribe of heavenly secrets, and a witness to the divine courtroom where the fate of creation hung in balance. The Book of Enoch, also known as 1 Enoch, compiled from Aramaic fragments found among the Dead Sea Scrolls and fully preserved in Ge'ez by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, elevates him to a pivotal role. Why was he taken? Not as punishment, but as reward and purpose. In Enoch 12:2-122, the Watchers themselves summon him, recognizing his uncorrupted soul as the ideal intermediary. God, weary of the earth's defilement, chose Enoch for his unwavering faith, described in Hebrews 11:5, as one who pleased God to bear witness to the judgment impending upon the fallen and their progeny. He was to record the indictments, traverse realms forbidden to mortals, and return with warnings that might yet salvage the remnants of humanity. As Enoch stood atop that sacred hill, perhaps a precursor to Sinai or Hermon itself, loci of divine encounters in ancient lore, the veil between worlds thinned. A whirlwind stirred, not of dust but of luminous ether, enveloping him in a cocoon of light. His visions began not with terror, but with awe. Lifted from the earth, he journeyed through the heavens, guided by archangels like Uriel and Raphael, names echoing from Babylonian and Persian influences that shaped post-exilic Jewish thought. The Book of Enoch's Book of the Watchers section, chapters 1-36, chronicles this ascent with vivid apocalyptic imagery. He beheld the portals of the stars, vast gateways where celestial winds howled and seasons were born. Rivers of fire cascaded through crystalline vaults, and mountains of gemstone pierced infinite skies. This was no mere dream. 'Twas a cosmic tour, revealing the mechanics of creation hidden from human eyes since Eden, deeper into the ethereal realms. Enoch witnessed the abodes of the righteous, dead paradisiacal gardens where souls awaited resurrection. It's a concept that would influence later eschatological beliefs in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. But the visions darkened as he approached the prisons of the fallen. In chilling detail, Enoch 10:4-6 describes the binding of the Watchers. Azazel cast into a desolate pit in the wilderness of Dudael, his form writhing in chains forged from unbreakable divine decree. Semieza and his cohorts, suspended between heaven and earth, hung in eternal torment, their cries a symphony of regret. The giants, their Nephilim offspring, met grisly ends slain by archangels, or turned upon each other in fratricidal fury. Their spirits doomed to wander as malevolent demons, afflicting humanity until the final judgment. Enoch, quill in hand metaphorically, as his role as scribe is emphasized, recorded these scenes, his words inscribed on heavenly tablets that would transcend time. The suspense built as Enoch's journeys unveiled the machinery of divine justice. He traversed the ends of the earth, witnessing the storehouses of natural forces, vaults where hail, snow, and dew were kept, guarded by angels whose countenances blazed like suns. in the Book of Parables, chapters 37 to 71. A later section, possibly composed in the 1st century BCE, Enoch encounters the Son of Man, a messianic figure seated on a throne of glory, judging the kings and the mighty. This vision, rich with symbolism drawn from Daniel 7, foretells a reckoning where the wicked are cast into abyssal flames, while the elect inherit a renewed earth. The atmosphere thickened with inevitability. The corruption below giants devouring the land. Humans steeped in violence mirrored the cosmic disorder Enoch beheld. Storms brewed in heavenly chambers, floods pent up behind adamantine gates, awaiting the command to unleash. Why such judgment? The texts are unequivocal. The Watchers' rebellion disrupted the divine order, introducing knowledge prematurely and birthing abominations that accelerated humanity's fall. Genesis 6:5-7 laments that the Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. Enoch's role amplified this narrative, serving as God's mouthpiece. In Enoch 12-16, he delivers the verdict to the Watchers, their pleas for mercy falling on deaf ears. "You have defiled yourselves with women," he proclaims, "and begotten giants as sons." The consequences were manifold. For the fallen angels, eternal bondage. For their offspring, annihilation. For humanity, a cleansing deluge to reset the corrupted lineage. Enoch's visions painted this not as capricious wrath, but as necessary restoration, echoing flood myths from the Sumerian Gilgamesh to the Hindu Matsya Purana, suggesting a shared cultural memory of cataclysm. As Enoch descended briefly to earth, tasked with warning his kin, including his son Methuselah, he carried the weight of these revelations. The world he returned to was a cauldron of chaos, the giant's tyranny at its zenith. Villages lay in ruins, scorched by wars fueled by Azazel's metallurgy. Skies wept, acid rain, tainted by unchecked sorcery. The very ground quaked with the footsteps of the Nephilim, whose cannibalistic feasts depleted herds and fields alike. Enoch preached repentance, his voice a solitary cry against the din of depravity. Yet few heeded. The corruption had rooted too deeply, tendrils of violence wrapping around every soul. In this interim, Enoch's life became a testament. He fathered children, built a legacy of wisdom, and walked in communion with the divine, his every step shadowed by the knowledge of impending doom. The visions culminated in his final ascent. No deathbed farewell, no tomb to mark his passing. Enoch was translated, body and soul, into the heavenly realms. Tradition holds he became Metatron, the angelic scribe, a transformation echoed in later Kabbalistic texts like the Zohar from the 13th century CE. This elevation underscored his unique role, not just witness, but eternal guardian of secrets. The judgment he foretold unfolded inexorably. The heavens opened, rains poured for 40 days and nights, though Enoch specifies 150 days of flooding in some accounts submerging the lost world. Mountains vanished beneath waves. Giants drowned in their fortresses. The Watchers' cries silenced by the abyss. Only Noah, Enoch's great-grandson, preserved the pure line, his ark a vessel of hope amid annihilation. But the story of Enoch endures beyond the flood, enshrined in the book that bears his name. Why did this text, once revered in early Jewish and Christian circles, quoted in the New Testament, Jude 1:14-15, and alluded to in 2 Peter, become controversial, hidden, or excluded from the biblical canon? Presented neutrally, the reasons are multifaceted, rooted in historical, theological, and cultural shifts, composed over centuries, from the 3rd century BCE to the 1st century CE. The Book of Enoch reflects a diverse authorship, blending Aramaic, Hebrew, and Greek influences. Its apocalyptic visions, elaborate angelology, and emphasis on fallen angels intermingling with humans challenged emerging orthodoxies. In Judaism, post-70 CE rabbis solidifying the tonic amid Roman oppression. favored texts emphasizing law and covenant over speculative eschatology. Enoch's vivid depictions of otherworldly journeys and a pre-existent Messiah clashed with the Pharisaic focus on Torah observance, leading to its exclusion from the Hebrew canon by the Council of Jamnia around 90 CE. Yet fragments at Qumran indicate its popularity among Essene communities, suggesting it was not universally dismissed, but selectively marginalized. Christianity's trajectory was similar. Early church fathers like Tertullian circa 200 CE and Origen cited it approvingly, viewing it as inspired. However, as the canon coalesced at councils like Laodicea 363 CE and Carthage 397 CE, concerns arose. Augustine and Jerome questioned its authenticity, citing its absence from the Hebrew Bible and potential for heretical interpretations, such as detailed demonology that could fuel Gnostic dualism or magical practices. The book's Ethiopian preservation stems from the Aksumite kingdom's early Christian adoption, where it remained canonical, influencing art and liturgy to this day. Modern scholarship, from the 18th century rediscovery by James Bruce to Geza Vermes, treats it responsibly as a window into Second Temple Judaism, illuminating texts like Revelation and Daniel. Controversies persist. Some view its exclusion as suppression of uncomfortable truths about angels and giants. Others as prudent curation to avoid pseudepigraphal forgeries. Neutrally, it's a product of its era-rich in mythology, yet offering profound insights into human morality, divine justice, and the cosmos. As the waters receded in the aftermath, a rainbow arched across the sky, a covenant of renewal, as Genesis recounts. The Watcher's rebellion, the giant's reign. The flood's purgil woven into the tapestry of myth and memory, reminding us of hubris's cost. Enoch's legacy endures, a testament to the possibility of transcendence amid ruin. His book, though sidelined, whispers eternal truths. That observation can lead to temptation, knowledge to corruption, but righteousness to salvation. In reflecting on this saga from the Watcher's descent to the deluge, roar we glimpse the fragility of our world, the allure of forbidden paths, and the inexorable pull of justice. If this exploration of ancient enigmas has stirred your curiosity, as it has mine through countless nights poring over faded scrolls, consider liking this video to show your support, subscribing for more dives into history's hidden depths, sharing it with fellow seekers of truth, and commenting your thoughts or where you're watching from, haps under a moon as blood-red as Enoch's. Until our next journey into the unknown, stay vigilant, for the stars still watch.